Tracy Morgan is a divisive individual. I've known people who love him, and I've known people who hate him, but I really haven't known anybody who's in between.
I gotta put on my producer hat. This movie is supposed to show people how great I am.
Other than the occasional person who's just unaware. For me personally, Morgan has always been a draw. His ability to encapsulate an individual who is both somebody that you could know and is bigger than life is mesmerizing and hilarious.
All that's gonna happen is you're gonna end up showing your whole ass to the world.
You're welcome, world. I got a donk.
But while Tracy has his highlights, there's one big flaw he has, in my opinion. He had fairly consistent work, for example, helming the show The Last OG from 2018 to 2021, or helming the spinoff of The Neighborhood, Crutch.
Maybe we could start our own podcast. We could rate those skinny jeans that you like. We call it Who Wore Tighter.
But it didn't really seem like Tracy cared to innovate or expand on his image, often playing the same brash and loud characters, but with very small variations here and there.
I said don't make a documentary. I also said don't buy that football made out of the original Miss Piggy.
Good talk. We both agree nothing's gonna change, and my Miss Piggy football is a great investment.
Which in general, it would just be great to see some range from Tracy. And at the same time, while he didn't step out of his comfort zone, there's a particular lane of TV sitcoms that I think also have remained relatively stagnant for a while and doesn't often move outside its comfort zone either. And that lane is mockumentary style sitcoms. These types of shows were popularized by The Office, which started in 2005 and continued in many other shows like Modern Family or Parks and Rec, or my personal favorite and the most unique one I've seen of them, which is Trial and Error.
If we lose this case, Lavinia is so loved, we're going to get run out of town on a stake.
Man, that is just an expression.
In Eastbeck, being driven out of town on a stake is more than just an expression. When the town is done with you, you are literally strapped to a giant stake and carried over county lines by an angry mob.
Which, if you haven't seen Trial and Error, please go watch it. Murder board, murder board. But regardless, while there have been many sitcoms in this vein, it seems that very often these shows utilize tropes and archetypes from The Office, or one of its many clones at least. And to me, that makes it so that many shows in this genre just start to blend together and kind of feel the same. So, when I heard that Tracy Morgan is helming not just another sitcom, but a mockumentary-style sitcom, which very often doesn't really innovate on the ideas of the old shows, I was definitely very wary. Sure, his persona could work in the style, but what was going to make this show stand out above the plethora of other mockumentary shows? Currently still on the air, we have shows that have been going for a while, such as Abbott Elementary, or we have more recent iterations of The Office, such as The Paper, which I think has another season in the works. So how, if at all, will this show shine above the others? Like and subscribe if you haven't already, it always helps out the channel, and also check out my Patreon where you can get all the content ad-free and extra content for as little as $2 a month. Let's get back to it. So let's start with the first eye-catching thing about the show, the title. It's definitely too long from a marketing standpoint, but forgoing that, the fall and rise of Reggie Dinkins does a good job of setting the vibe of the show. It reverses the saying the rise and fall of, pointing towards that this show is meant to serve as some sort of redemption arc. Further, the name Reggie Dinkins is just kind of fun to say and funny, but it points to the kind of absurd and over-the-top character that's played by Tracy Morgan. And speaking of Tracy Morgan, of course, the next most eye-catching thing is the cast. The show serves as a vehicle for 2 stars, and the one beside Tracy Morgan is Daniel Radcliffe, which immediately seems like a little bit of an odd pairing and is one of the things that drew me to the show. Radcliffe is a genuinely hilarious comedic actor, proving that he has the chops for it in movies like Weird, the Al Yankovic Story,
Order up.
But generally, he often takes roles or projects that are a bit more artsy or out there. For example, one of the movies he made called Horns is one of my favorite films with him starring, where he basically slowly turns into the devil after sprouting horns, which cause those around him to tell about and act on their darkest desires. But regardless, seeing Radcliffe casted in a mockumentary-style sitcom was really intriguing because it seems like the kind of pop TV that Radcliffe wouldn't usually so readily engage with, so it must have had a really solid script or pitch to get him on board. And pairing such a genuinely fantastic actor with a powerhouse of a comedic actor, such as the pairing of Tracy Morgan and Daniel Radcliffe, provides the bones of a really fascinating project. Now I hear you. What the fuck is this show actually about, Rocky? You scream at your phone, which you should really stop doing that. People are gonna start thinking you're crazy talking to yourself as if someone could hear you. Well, actually, now that I think about it, they'd probably just think you're on a heated phone call. But honestly, the show's plot is where things get somewhat interesting. Tracy Morgan plays the titular Reggie Dinkins, a football star who ruined his own career, particularly with a gambling scandal where he bet on himself to win, which he didn't think would be an issue and would just serve as further encouragement to play well.
What, are you saying that you gambled on the game?
Very funny. You know I bet on every game. You're my bookie. Now where's the phone number for that live TV interview I'm supposed to do?
Dinkins has long been out of the league, but he's been able to keep up his lifestyle through smart, strategic investments that his ex-wife and current agent make on his behalf. He's in his middle age though, and he's looking for a return to the spotlight in a more positive way. Also, he lives alongside his son and his girlfriend, both of which are pretty funny and add to the drama or comedy in some pretty solid ways. And to the end of trying to get back in the spotlight in a positive way, the goal of Dinkins in the series is to reinvigorate and reshape his legacy through a film. To create this film, he hires Arthur Tobin, an Oscar-winning director who had his own crash out and subsequent blacklisting from his industry after he loses it while directing a super CGI-heavy superhero film.
This tennis ball here is Deathatron, and these are moons. Space babies? Why are there more tennis balls? Wait, the scene is a tennis match now?
Placing him into a similar situation as Reggie, where he needs his own comeback story, and he thinks that this documentary could be that. Furthermore, the kind of meta-narrative taking place is that we are watching a mockumentary about the making of a sports documentary, which I do think is an interesting little twist on the traditional mockumentary sitcom style, weaving the documentary itself into the dramatic narrative at the core of the show and having it be the driving engine. I think the juxtaposition of the two characters and their shared connection through failure sets up a really interesting arc where if they genuinely try and work together, they can come out on top in a much better situation than before and both really help each other out of a rough spot. It's a classic underdog story and unlikely friend story, and also they even weave in certain kind of topical things like sports gambling, which right now is a major topic of debate because of all of the recent Super Bowl ads and whatnot, and just how prevalent gambling is in our lives now. I don't think it's gonna change anytime soon. Gambling's here to stay, unfortunately. But also I'd like to note that the writing and the introduction of the characters within the first couple episodes are very well done. It feels like the first two episodes have this kind of air of mystery to them that slowly is revealed, as initially we don't know why Tobin is really here or what Dinkins' long list of misdeeds are. And the slow reveal of dripping more and more about them and their life is done very naturally through the process of making the documentary. And so every new detail feels really kind of earned and doesn't just feel like exposition being dumped on you. And while the writing is solid, the thing that truly holds it all together and sells it is the chemistry between the actors. Radcliffe provides this kind of nervous energy that meshes well with Tracy Morgan's brash and loud demeanor. And furthermore, the ex-wife of Dinkins, who is played by Erica Alexander, is a phenomenal character with a lot of depth. You can really see such a range of emotions from her and her character, serving as both a foil and bolster to Dinkins, depending on how she's feeling in the moment.
Here's the thing, Arthur. I was wrong about you. I thought there was no way you could understand Reggie's life, but you may be the one person who can.
You messed up just as bad as me. You, me, same.
And she also just serves as a more measured and reserved counterpart to her loud husband. As mentioned, Tracy does continue to play pretty much the same character that he always does. A loud, brash individual who is quite selfish, and I would love to see some more range from Tracy, but I will say they have moved in the right direction. For example, in one of the episodes, Dinkins has to learn to genuinely apologize to people instead of just paying them off, and it's genuinely very funny. For example, there is a scene where he goes on a talk show to talk about the gambling scandal, and instead of apologizing, he hands the interviewer a purse and leaves.
I guess I'm sorry if anybody's dumb enough to be offended. You should be happy you're getting to watch me play football. Here you go, baby.
Nice. But that's not much of an apology. Oh, where are you going?
But when he does kind of realize he needs to start truly apologizing to people and opening up emotionally, it leads to some heartfelt moments with his son or his ex-wife. And I think more of those heartfelt moments would be really nice. So I do hope they try to move forward with some of those character elements of Dinkins, giving him more emotional depth over time so we can see a bit more range from Tracy. Also, they're just kind of relatable storylines that make a lot of sense. There's many men of Tracy's age or a bit older, or maybe even younger sometimes, that struggle to tell those they love that they love them or that they're sorry. So it works in grounding the character in some real life absurdity. And even when we see Tracy just being Tracy, it's done in packaging that we haven't quite seen before, helping it to feel somewhat fresh throughout by, you know, pairing him with, again, somebody like Daniel Radcliffe, which isn't quite something that I've seen before. So what's my verdict? Well, the meta-narrative that surrounds the plot of two individuals who need redemption, creating this documentary to reach that end goal, is really interesting, and the character of Reggie Dinkins is one that doesn't differ greatly from Morgan's previous roles, and I do think that is somewhat to the detriment of the show at times. However, they have their moments where Dinkins is allowed to be deepened emotionally and as a character, and I think they'd be wise to capitalize on those moments even harder to really show off Morgan's range. Daniel Radcliffe is also phenomenal for this role, and I'm always glad to just see more Daniel Radcliffe, so pairing him alongside Tracy Morgan feels strange at first glance, but their chemistry is quite clear right from episode 1 and definitely was the right decision. Morgan's loud and brash nature is juxtaposed by Radcliffe's quiet and nerdy demeanor in a way that just works. It also aims to provide a quite likable underdog story in new packaging and does it fairly well. Furthermore, adding the meta element that the mockumentary is about making a documentary, I think is a bit of a fun evolution of the mockumentary sitcom genre and definitely adds a unique bit of drama to it. And on top of that, the show is just genuinely quite funny, so I'm personally excited to see where this show goes, and I think the first 2 episodes were really solid. At this time, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 4 stars. Have you seen the show? What do you think of Reggie Dinkins so far? Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below, and my name has been Crazy Rocky, and this has been a smoking session.